Now we have talked about strings, but let's just do a little bit more here. So this is all familiar to you. You have a variable defined as a string. Give it a string value and show it here. And this will be the heading, which will occur up here. Now we've also talked about this, concatenation. Say that word yourself. Say it. Concatenation. Okay. What does that mean? That's basically putting two strings together. So we've seen that before. So here's a string defined as a string. Here's another string defined as a string. Here's another string defined as a string. This one is set to this. This one is set to this. This one is set to the concatenation of the first two. So it's set to hello world. So what is it going to look like? There's a little space here, so it'll read OK, right? It'll be OK. And we'll get in the message box, we'll get the result hello world. Now he says you can use the concatenation operator in line. So what does that mean? You can just do it this way. To string, division test dot. So that's this is a string, right here. Can't get it, but that's a string. And then this is another string, so you can concatenate within other parts of other pieces of code. So you don't have to do it separately, like we did it here, right? We did it a separate line where we concatenate these two, and then we take this result and put it in the message box. You don't have to do it that way. Okay? You can concatenate inline means while you're in the middle of other code. So we're right in the middle of doing the message box, or the message box show, and we're concatenating within there. So you're allowed to do it that way also. Okay, now he also points out that we didn't even define this part as a variable, like made a variable equal to this. We just wrote this as a string right there. We didn't say we have some variable equal to this string and then we put the variable in here. No, we just put the string itself right here. So he says this is actually already as a string, but you don't have to define it as a string variable. In Visual Basic 2010 parlance, in other words, when we're in Visual Basic 2010 language, this is called a string literal. So it's not even a variable, it's just a string. Right? We don't have a variable that's equal to a string, we just have the string itself. So this is called a string literal, meaning that it's exactly as shown in the code and doesn't change. Like if it was a variable, then maybe now it's equal to one string, but later it could be a different string. But that's not going to happen here. This is just one string. When you use the concatenation operator on this string together with the other one, the value contained. Okay, we understand that. Now there are other string operators besides the concatenation operator. We only talked about the concatenation operator, so now we want to look at some other operators, because knowing how to use different operators in strings is very useful. You'll see some here. So this is the first homework assignment for this class, so I do want you to do this one. Okay? So make a text box like this one, and add a text box control like this, and set the name property of this text box to txt string like this with a name, and add another button and set its name property to button length. So here, another button, call it button length, the name of it, and the text property of it, length. And put in these two as well, although I'm not sure if we need them. Okay, now double click this length button to open its click event handler and add in the following bolded code here. This, so add that in, and then I'll switch to here and add this in. And then, so pause the video now and finish this up, and then let's talk about it. Okay, so now I assume that you did it. Now that you typed it, let's see what it says here. So we just have, we define a variable as a string, and then we take that and we use its text property, or rather its text method. No, sorry, its text property, and then and so we get string results is equal to this text, and then we have this. Let's look at that. So this is a property of this. This is a property of this. And you can guess what it does. It tells you the length of the string. Okay? And then we apply this method to that. Now, you may be getting confused. Actually, I get confused too, as to when something is a method and when it's a property. So I'm calling toString a method. You'll notice I said that many times in these last few videos. But it looks like it's a property because there's no parentheses at the end of it. A method should have parentheses at the end. However, now this, not all languages do this, but Visual Basic does this. If there are no arguments that go into the method, and in other words, if there are no arguments that go into the method, then you can leave out the parentheses. So this could be written with parentheses here and here. You could have parentheses there, but you don't have to write them. So, but then unfortunately it gets confusing because is this a method or is it a property? So it would probably be nicer if they had put parentheses afterwards, especially in a book where you're learning how to do things. It would be good to make it clear that this is a method. But maybe one argument for not doing it that way is that maybe other people who aren't trying to teach you won't be using parentheses, and so you need to be comfortable with that as well. But anyway, this is a method, and you could have parentheses there with nothing inside the parentheses. Okay, so anyway, this is the result, and then we get the length of it and convert that to a string. And so we get 9 characters as what you get in this box. So he says, when you have the string, you can use the length property to get an integer value, in other words a number, that represents the number of characters in it. Remember that as far as the computer is concerned, characters include things like spaces and other punctuation marks. So be careful about that. So if you have a space, that's also counted as a character. Since the length property returns the number of characters as an integer data type, you want to convert that to a string using the toString method. Okay, so that's one thing you can do, is get the length of a string. Besides concatenation, you can do this with strings. Okay, let's stop and resume with this, substrings.